Well, hey everybody, Pastor Ranja here, and welcome back to Community Group. I know a couple of you have already been meeting over the last couple of weeks, but most groups are starting to pick up this week, and I can't wait to get back with my group, and I'm sure you feel the same way. So, welcome back. It's good to be back together, and we're going to get into our discussion for today. But before we do, I want to take a minute to plug Super Sunday, which is coming up on February 4th. That's Super Bowl Sunday. And it's one of our bigger outreach events of the year. We get together. It's going to be at the Stamps Community House that's in Calais Village. And it's the place we had the last potluck. And we're going to have a bunch of different events. There's going to be, I know, a chili cook-off, nacho bar, wing eating contest, cornhole tournament. That got pretty intense last year. And there's a bunch of other activities and events. This is a huge event for us in a way we can invite people to church, invite them to come to lunch afterwards, and just have a good time. And if you haven't already invited someone, I want to encourage you to take some time to think about someone you can invite. It supports our mission statement, inviting people to life in the kingdom. So make sure you're thinking about someone you could bring to share in just a fun time where we can kind of share God's love with people. The second thing is we need volunteers to help set up and tear down before and after the event. Leanne will be at the back. She was at the back on Sunday. She'll be at the back this Sunday recruiting volunteers too. And I just want to say, if you're in a community group, you are part of the lifeblood of the church. We are the people who are growing together and experiencing God's blessing through each other, and that's what we want to share with people. So if you can volunteer, because we need, it's all hands on deck right now. We need everyone to help so that we can make this event happen and so that it can be a success. So Leanne will be on the back. If you can make it, please take some time and volunteer to help with either setup or tear down. All right, so that is Super Sunday. It's coming up in 2 weeks. And this last Sunday, we started a new sermon series called Wild World. And it's talking about how life, we hope that life will just be like this smooth ride, smooth sailing, like riding on a cruise liner. But life often resembles more of a roller coaster ride. There are ups, there are downs, there are times of calm and peace, but they're always short-lived. There's twists and turns happening. So how do we cope? How do we deal with that? Well, Pastor Jason started this week with, we're going to be looking at the life of Abraham over the course of this series, but he started this week with Abraham's calling in chapter 12, where God says, "Now the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless those, and on the one who curses you I will curse. And in all the families of the earth, shall be blessed through you." Now that's a pretty incredible calling. That's a fantastic way to be called by God. And for Abraham, it was a great thing because he didn't have any kids. And this was an incredible source of shame for him and his family because he was the oldest son and meant to carry on the family name, but he didn't have any kids. And so for God to say, hey, I'm going to take this sore spot and make you a great nation, a blessing to the entire world, it was a fantastic calling. It was a fantastic thing to happen to him. And so he's like, great. He decided to follow God. And that was a risk, right? He's leaving his father's home. He's leaving everything he knew. But he decides to follow God. And God calls him and leads him to the land of Canaan through a sequence of events. Brings him to Canaan and says, this is the land I'm going to give you and your people. And Abraham builds an altar there, but he's probably a little surprised because, well, there are other people in the land of Canaan. He was probably expecting God to take him to a beautiful land, lush, ready for agriculture, with nobody there, so he could raise his offspring and they produce a nation. But God takes him to this place where there are already people. So he builds this altar to worship God, and then he continues on his journey because he can't stay there. And he goes a little farther and he builds another altar. And the Bible says he built an altar and he called on the Lord. And I can imagine what that was like, that Lord, I'm building this altar. I've followed you. I've given up everything to pursue what you're calling me to, but there doesn't seem like there's light at the end of the tunnel. I need you to come through. I need you to fulfill your promise. I need you to come good. And so Abraham builds an altar and calls on the Lord. And that's where we ended this last sermon, and it led us to the main point. Pastor Jason said, the call of God on your life launches you into a lifetime of calling on God. I'm going to say that again. The call of God on your life launches you into a lifetime of calling on God. See, when God calls us into something, it's not necessarily going to be easy, but it leads us to constantly seek Him, constantly look for His provision, constantly be seeking His will. It's not going to be easy because, well, if it was, we would never learn to seek God. We'd never learn to fulfill His plans for us. It would just happen on its own. But the call of God on our life launches us into a lifetime of calling on God. So I've got 3 questions to get you guys rolling this week. The first is our fun question. We all, growing up, had certain things, certain dreams or passions, things we wanted to be when we grew up. And if you were like me, that was a rotating list. There were a lot of things I wanted to be, but there's probably something that you really wanted to be when you grew up, something that you invested a lot of emotional capital into. What was that thing, and why did you want it so bad? Go ahead and take some time and share that with your group. So the second question is, can you relate to Abraham's story? Has God ever led you, or you felt God leading you or calling you into something? Maybe it was something big like uprooting your life, or maybe it was something small like, hey, I want you to go do this thing for me. And you did it, but it didn't turn out the way you thought it would. Maybe it turned out better, or maybe it turned out worse. Take a few moments and let's share some stories with the group about just following God's leading and how that turned out. Finally, we're at our last question, and this question can lead you into prayer. The challenge at the end of the sermon was to write on your Connect card a couple of times this week. You knew where you would need to call on the Lord. You knew there would be difficult things coming up there. You would need to just call on God for His provision, His strength, whatever for that situation. So would you take some time and share 1 or 2 of those with the group? Let everyone get a chance to share that, and then end with prayer, praying for each other, for God to work in that situation in your life. Well, those are your questions. Blessings on you. Hope you all have a great time together. See you soon.